Chapter 5 Stress and Neurotransmitters. Stress is the strain expressed when an organism's equilibrium is disrupted, encompassing both the stressor, which is the source of stress, and the stress reaction, the organism's physical and emotional response. According to the appraisal theory of stress, stress arises less from actual events and more from our cognitive interpretation of events. Primary appraisal involves evaluating the presence of a potential threat, leading to responses categorized as irrelevant, benign, or stressful. If the primary appraisal is negative, secondary appraisal follows, assessing the individual's capability to cope with the threat. There are 4 major categories of stressors: significant life changes, catastrophic events, daily hassles, and ambient stressors. The autonomic nervous system collaborates with the limbic system and reticular activating system to provide and respond to stressors. Stressors trigger the sympathetic nervous system, initiating the fight or flight response, characterized by increased heart rate, respiration, and peripheral vasoconstriction, along with inhibition of digestion and immune functions. The endocrine response involves the release of hormones like epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. In some cases, the tend and befriend response may be more effective. While fight or flight involves either confronting a stressor head-on or fleeing from it, the tend to befriend response entails seeking social support and nurturing connections as a means of coping with stress. Oxytocin, associated with peer bonding and strongly linked to estrogen, plays a crucial role in this response, possibly explaining its stronger manifestation in women. The general adaptation syndrome outlines 3 stages of stress: the alarm phase, characterized by the onset of stress; the resistance phase, involving coping mechanisms and cortisol release; and the exhaustion phase, where prolonged stress leads to tissue damage and increased susceptibility to illness. Understanding these stages and responses is crucial for effectively managing stress and mitigating its adverse effects on health and well-being. The physical effects of stress can be profound, impacting various systems in the body. Stress can exert damaging effects on the heart, leading to increased blood pressure and vascular rigidity, which may contribute to conditions like hypertension and coronary artery disease. Metabolically, stress promotes the secretion of cortisol and glucagon, leading to elevated glucose levels, potentially exacerbating metabolic conditions such as diabetes. Reproductive fitness can be disrupted by stress, with fertility affected in women and impotence in men often associated with stress. Behaviorally, stress affects areas of the brain rich in glucocorticoid receptors, such as the hippocampus and frontal cortex, potentially resulting in impaired learning, memory, impulse, control, and reasoning. Emotional responses to stress may include depression, characterized by anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure or joy, and learned helplessness, which is feeling powerless due to past failures, as well as increased vulnerability to heart disease, anxiety, and susceptibility to addiction. Effective stress management strategies are essential for mitigating these adverse effects. Perceived control over stressful situations, optimism, and social support can aid in coping with stress. Engaging in regular exercise, meditation, maintaining religious beliefs or faith can also help manage stress levels. Additionally, cultivating cognitive flexibility through perspective changes, such as working with a counselor, can be instrumental in reducing stress and promoting overall well-being. The nervous system is divided into 2 parts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system comprises the brain and spinal cord, while the peripheral encompasses all other nerves and ganglia throughout the body, including cranial and spinal nerves. The CNS is composed of various regions, including the cerebrum, cerebral hemispheres, brainstem, and the cerebellum. During development, the forebrain gives rise to the cerebrum. The midbrain gives form to the midbrain, and the hindbrain develops into the pons, medulla, and cerebellum. The nervous system performs both basic and higher functions. Basic functions include motor control, sensory processing, and autonomic functions such as reflexes. Higher functions involve cognition, emotion, and consciousness. Within the nervous system, motor units play a critical role in controlling skeletal muscles. Lower motor neurons, which are efferent neurons of the peripheral nervous system, innervate skeletal muscle fibers at neuromuscular junctions, forming motor units. Abnormalities in motor units can lead to weakness and lower motor neuron signs, also known as LMN signs, including muscle atrophy, fasciculations, which is involuntary twitching, hypotonia, decreased muscle tone, and hypereflexia, which is diminished muscle stretch reflexes. Those may also be present. Peripheral somatosensation involves various sensory modalities, including position sense, vibration, touch, pain, and temperature. Mechanoreceptors detect position, vibration, and touch, while nociceptors sense pain, and thermoreceptors respond to temperature changes. These receptors vary in the diameter of their axons, with mechanoreceptors having larger axons with thick myelin sheaths for faster transmission, while pain and temperature receptors have smaller axons, resulting in slower transmission rates. Touch sensation involves both fast and slow pathways, with fine touch signals traveling quickly and less precise information transmitted more slowly. In the skin, various types of receptors detect different sensory stimuli. Mechanoreceptors present close to the skin surface and deeper within tissues, respond to mechanical stimuli such as touch and vibration. Receptors deep within the muscle detect stretch and play a crucial role in detecting change in muscle position. Pain and temperature receptors lack specialized structures and terminate in uncovered terminals. These receptors send sensory information through afferent axons to the central nervous system. The muscle stretch reflex is an example of a reflex involving both afferent, which is the stimulus, and efferent, which is the response. This reflex causes a muscle to contract in response to being stretched, serving as a protective mechanism. For instance, the knee-jerk response involves the hammer hitting the tendon below the kneecap, activating muscle spindles. In the muscle spindles, somatosensory neurons form excitatory synapses with neurons in the spinal cord, which then excite skeletal muscles via lower motor neurons, leading to muscle contraction. To ensure the reflex functions properly, muscles on one side of the leg are inhibited, while those on the opposite side are excited. Gray matter in the nervous system contains neuron somas, while white matter consists of myelated axons. In the spinal cord, gray matter is located internally, surrounded by white matter, whereas in the brain, white matter is centrally located with gray matter on the outside. Upper motor neurons regulate lower motor neurons, which control muscles. Lower motor neurons, controlling limb and trunk muscles, and those passing through cranial nerves, controlling head and neck muscles, are controlled by the upper motor neurons. Upper motor neurons originate in the cerebral cortex and synapse on lower motor neurons in the brainstem or spinal cord. These upper motor neurons form tracks depending on their destination, such as the corticospinal tract if traveling to the spinal cord, or the corticobular tract if going to the brainstem. Upper motor signs are manifestations of dysfunction in the upper motor neurons and often indicate neurological disorder. These signs include hyperflexia, clonus, hypertonia, and extensor plantar response. Hyperreflexia refers to an increase in muscle stretch reflexes. The exact cause is uncertain, but it may occur when muscle spindle receptors become hypersensitive due to the inadequate periodic stimulation of lower motor neurons by the upper motor neurons. Clonus involves rhythmic contractions of antagonist muscles, leading to involuntary movements. For example, clonus in the foot may cause it to move up and down involuntarily. This can result from hyperreflexia, as triggering the muscle stretch reflex in one direction may activate the antagonistic muscles, leading to rhythmic contractions. Hypertonia refers to increased muscle tone, leading to stiffness or rigidity in the muscles. Another sign, extensor plantar response, occurs when scraping the bottom of the foot causes the toes to extend upward instead of flexing downward, as is typically observed. Somatosensory information travels through different pathways in the nervous system. Generally, there are two main categories: one for position sense, vibration sense, and fine touch, and another for pain, temperature, and gross touch. These pathways deliver sensory information to the spinal cord, which then transmits it to the brain through specific tracts. In these tracts, sensory information typically crosses to the opposite side of the brain before reaching the cerebrum, explaining why damage to one side of the brain can affect the opposite side of the body. The cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the cerebrum, is responsible for various functions. Different lobes of the cerebral cortex specialize in different tasks. The frontal lobe controls motor functions, houses the prefrontal cortex responsible for executive functions, and contains Broca's area, involved in speech production. The parietal lobes houses the somatosensory cortex, responsible for processing sensory information and is involved in spatial manipulation. The occipital lobe is primarily responsible for processing visual information and contains the striate cortex. The temporal lobe processes auditory information and includes Wernicke's area, involved in language comprehension. The cerebellum plays a crucial role in coordinating movement. It receives motor plan information and positive sense information, or position sense information, and it sends feedback to both the cerebrum and motor areas of the motor cortex. The middle portion of the cerebrum coordinates movement of the trunk and walking, while the lateral portions are involved in limb movements, including those of the arms and legs, as well as speech and eye movements. The brainstem connects all parts of the brain and includes the midbrain, pons, and medulla. The reticular formation, scattered throughout the brainstem, plays a significant role in autonomic functions and controls processes such as respiration, digestion, and higher and lower brain functions. Long tracts, which are collections of axons connecting the cerebrum and brainstem, include important pathways for motor and somatosensory functions. The subcortical cerebrum includes structures located deep within the cerebrum, such as the internal capsule, which contains many critical pathways, including the corticospinal tract and the corpus callosum, which connects the right and left cerebral hemispheres. Other structures in this region include the basal ganglia, which are involved in motor functions, cognition, and emotion, the thalamus, which is responsible for sensory function and higher brain functions like cognition and emotion, and the hypothalamus, which controls the pituitary gland, regulating various bodily functions throughout the endocrine system. Neurotransmitter anatomy involves various neurotransmitters that play crucial roles in neuronal communication. Glutamate is the most common excitatory neurotransmitter and is involved in many brain functions. It plays a crucial role in learning, memory, and synaptic plasticity, the ability to synapse or to strengthen or weaken over time. However, excessive glutamate activity can be harmful and has been implicated in conditions such as excitotoxicity, which occurs when excessive glutamate leads to neuronal damage or cell death. GABA and glycine are the most common inhibitory neurotransmitters, with GABA predominant in the brain and glycine in the spinal cord. Acetylcholine is released by nuclei in the frontal lobe and plays a role in motor control and autonomic functions. Histamine is released by the hypothalamus and is involved in regulating wakefulness and other functions. Norepinephrine is released by the locus coeruleus in the pons and plays a role in the autonomic nervous system. Serotonin is released by the RAF nuclei in the midbrain and medulla and is involved in regulating mood and sleep. Dopamine is released by the ventral tegmental area and substantia nigra and plays a role in reward, motivation, and motor control. Lesion studies and experimental ablation involve intentionally creating brain damage to observe changes in animal behavior, though it's not performed on humans. This can be achieved through various methods such as surgical removal, aspiration, nerve cuts, or radiofrequency lesions. Radiofrequency lesions use a wire that's inserted into the brain to destroy tissue by passing a high-frequency current, allowing for control over the lesion size but damaging cells and axons. Neurochemical lesions, like those induced by cyanuric acid or oxidopamine, selectively destroy specific neurons, offering insights into conditions like Parkinson's disease. Cortical cooling, achieved through cryogenic blockade using devices like the cryoloop, temporarily and reversibly inhibits neuron firing, distinguishing it from other techniques. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you liked the video, please give it a like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more chapters. Have a good day.